Saturday night was the worst loss in program history.
Wow.
Billy, why are you
That's
laughing?
too much.
I don't
the
think
worst
it's too
in
much.
program history.
I
Come
don't-
on.
I
They
don't-
lost to Penn State in a national championship game.
I just mentioned that. That was the first thing that I mentioned.
Steve Martin.
It was the very first thing that I mentioned.
Yeah.
They
It's
lost
a long time ago, though.
They lost 2 national championship games. But what has never happened is what happened to me on Sunday morning. I'm scrolling through on satellite radio that patch of sports channels from 80 to 87 or whatever before Netflix is a joke. And I'm scrolling, and each of the channels is speaking about this, including Jason Jackson's NBA show.
What?
With Amin El-Hassan. I thought, surely it will stop. Surely if I keep going to the right and get into NASCAR and
Stay in your lane. I mean,
surely it will stop. But everybody was talking about how they lost because Stugotz, and this is the reason I say it is the worst loss in program history. We could legitimately play that minute over 10 million times and not get the result that ends with not just Miami losing, but Miami fumbling, Miami allowing 75 yards to that offense at the end of the game with 30 seconds left.
also, without them taking a knee.
Well, that's the start of it. That's why every channel on satellite radio was saying the same thing, which is, what idiots. Like nobody was saying anything different. It was just a consensus of everybody Sunday morning was talking about how can you lose that way, where the coach knows he has to take a knee and he doesn't take a knee and he just hands it off. And another reason, Stugotz, that I say it's the worst loss in program history. I don't know if you remember the miracle at the Meadowlands. It was 1978. And it was so long ago that back then coaches thought kneeling was dishonorable. So no one did it. There was a league-wide feeling among coaches that kneeling...
That's not true, Dan.
It is true.
Like when you're playing your friends in Madden?
It is true that kneeling is...
You don't take a knee.
That you keep playing, okay? But Zonka was in the Giants huddle at the end of his career with hairy forearms, and he's like, don't hand me the ball. Don't hand me the ball. I don't want... And by the way, it was a game between 3rd and 4th place teams. Like a meaningless game, but the reason it's remembered 50 years later is because they fumbled when they could have knelt, and Herm Edwards takes back a touchdown, and Philadelphia ends up winning. 50 years later, they still talk about it. But I'm going to go here to Mike and ask him if he's ever felt worse than he felt about his program on Saturday night, his birthday weekend, where you not only lose, but you lose like that. Do you think it's overstatement for me to say that it's the worst loss in the history of the program?
Appreciate us finally starting a local hour with Canes Talk.
When's your birthday?
Today.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Mike.
Wait.
Yeah.
Aren't you having a party like a week from now?
No. The invite that you got was for Friday. It was great seeing you.
I thought it was the 16th.
all right, though.
Hold on a second.
I didn't get one.
Wait a minute.
I didn't get one.
I had the exact same experience.
I would have been
You
there.
thought
It
it
was
was a
free.
6th?
Yeah.
I thought it was on a Monday for some reason. I'm like, that's a weird day for a party.
Hold on.
So other people were there, but you weren't.
The sound doesn't work on the Stephen A. Happy Birthday.
Oh, it's too bad.
It is too bad.
Happy birthday.
Why weren't you guys there? Nobody went?
Where?
They all thought it was a different day, apparently.
I was there.
Yeah.
I
Appreciate
got
it.
it a Thursday. I thought it said the 16th. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, mark my calendar. And that's a Monday.
Were you there?
Yes.
You were.
You were?
Where was it?
It was down here. You weren't going to go.
Oh, so you didn't send me an invite?
No, I didn't even.
Well, thank you.
No better.
Thank you for not
Yeah.
making me lie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Big shakeup in the BCS this week. Huge.
BCS, Miami was ranked number 1.
not this week.
They lost to a 19-point underdog.
Yeah, Dan, look, in terms of, there have been certainly far more devastating losses, far more impactful. If you want to look at impact, I'd argue it's not even the most disastrous Georgia Tech result. In 2005, they were the number 3 team in the country. There was a game at the Orange Bowl where the lights weren't working properly. All Miami has to do is win that game as a double-digit favorite, and they back into a national title game in 2005, and they lose that game to Calvin Johnson and Reggie Ball, I think, was a quarterback at the time. So, yeah, not even the most hurtful, memorable Georgia Tech
Not
loss.
in terms of stakes. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about stakes. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the country laughing at you.
Yeah, no, the country laughing is a huge part of all this. It's stupid. Tell you what? Why don't you just ask me a pointed question, because I don't want to get accused
You
of
don't
deflecting
think it's
or
the
anything
worst
like that.
loss in program
No,
history?
FIU, Middle Tennessee State, those were worse losses. I'd say maybe even last year against FSU. I know you mentioned the FSU when they had the death penalty stuff surrounding it. They're worse. Last year was such a bad year.
Mike, you're trying to get to a playoff, though. All you had to do was take a knee.
Well, I think this season I've been pretty rational about what I thought. I think last week was a big rat poison week where we kind of like started getting excited. Hey, maybe Texas A&M isn't a bad team, and maybe this season can be a year ahead of schedule, and maybe it's more of a special year. But entering this whole experience with Coach Cristobal, we said that he was going to lose dumb ones. I don't think we ever could imagine one that dumb. Entering this season, after the surprise of how bad last year was, thought, 9 wins is a good year. I'm not going to be foolish enough to not look at the progress made year over year. That being said, if you're going to have a special season, there are going to be games that you need to just survive. FSU's already had one at Boston College. Miami had survived that game. And there was a lot of ego that went into that final.
Played really poorly, by the way.
Yeah,
Van Dyke was really bad.
Van Dyke was terrible. Everyone said that, Georgia Tech did what they had to do to be in position to win that game, and Miami played poorly. If you look at the offensive output, they were who they've been all season. It's just Tyler Van Dyke's turning the ball over, and they lose a turnover battle. If you look at that final drive when they're salting the game away, I was irate in my seats because they're snapping the ball with 4 seconds left on the play clock, 6 seconds left on the play clock.
No, he does that all the time. Mike, this is what I'm telling you. He did it at Oregon all the time. They lost to Stanford and a backup quarterback in a game. I didn't understand how they lost, and it's because he was doing that. There was no clock management.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Really bad.
A lot of people were doing that Stanford-Oregon game, and I think when we hired Cristobal, the first segment you and I mentioned that game specifically because we both bet on that game, and we're like, man, he finds ways to lose, and that's going to be part of the Mario Cristobal experience. But when it comes to national championship probabilities, he does check the most important box, which is talent acquisition. That being said, that final drive was disastrous. They should have been kneeling not just in that one play that everyone was looking at. They should have been kneeling from the first down. I was screaming in desperate hope that someone would hear me. And then when Chaney runs the ball, it was a shock that it was called on the field a fumble. It didn't look like a fumble as it happened. No. It was very clearly not a fumble, but you don't kneel, you tempt fate, and bad officials that have been bad the entire game are going to take the opportunity to teach you a lesson, and no one's going to be on your side. It's galvanized everybody. For the first time ever, we're not blaming officials anymore because we all know how soaked in ego and how stupid that moment was. And I will tell you that if you think that Mario Cristobal didn't know the game situation, that it's just no one on the staff knew the scenarios, you're sadly mistaken. There was a conscious effort there to just run the ball. They haven't knelt all season long.
It makes it worse that he knew.
Yeah, you can make that argument. I don't know if the motivation was to get Chaney to 100 yards. I don't know if the motivation was to make the final score look a little bit better as you're trying to get style points in the modern age. It was bad. You had to survive an advanced game. You survived it. You played like crap. And headed into that North Carolina game, it would have been great to just survive, keep an undefeated season going, and a huge embarrassment of a loss. And anything that you want to say about Mario Cristobal, you're certainly justified in saying it. That was terrible. He turned a win into a loss.
Well, what is the thought process of the coaching staff on that? Because I was trying to figure out why they did that, right? And getting Don Chaney Jr. to 100 yards seemed like the logical thing. And then after the game, when you ask him about it, I was almost trying to find a reason that he did it and thinking like, okay, well, he's trying to get this guy his first 100 rushing yard game of his career, and he doesn't want to throw him under the bus for fumbling a ball that he didn't actually fumble anyways, right? But then when you look back and you see that he just doesn't kneel the ball, he hasn't done it all year. Why is that? Because then you take away the getting the 100 yards justification from it. He just doesn't want to do it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think it's some macho stuff, like some macho came out.
They
thought
it was dishonorable. The coaches thought in the 70s the miracle in the Meadowlands happened because 50 years ago the coaches thought it was dishonorable.
John McVay
to kneel out the clock.
You have this. You built your entire team identity to salt the game away, and they were seemingly doing that, but they were snapping the ball with 6 seconds. They didn't know the scenario. With 90 seconds left in that game, they should have been kneeling. They should have been kneeling. And it just didn't register. And you tempt fate, and they fumble a ball that wasn't really a fumble, but no one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. Maybe we can apply human logic. That's why you have a college football playoff committee later in the year if you're looking at how to evaluate the season. For me, as devastating as that was, the shape of the program that Miami is trying to build, the team that they're going to be, isn't necessarily going to be defined by that. There's a long view here, but holy shit, that was really embarrassing.
Stugotz, I forgot another one. Jimmy Johnson's first year, his defensive coaches were in the elevator when Hail Flutie was completed on a game the nation was watching after Thanksgiving. His coaches thought the game was over. They were behaving as if the game was over. Right. And Doug Flutie completed a pass in the end zone, and it was, I'm telling you, Saturday night was similar to that.
With what I don't get is, as meticulous as coaches are, we talk about coaches being crazy people, 20-hour days, you're pouring through the data and the video and just doing everything. The fact that Mario isn't acutely aware of his problems when it comes to time management, when it comes to, hey, why don't I maybe kneel this one? Right? Like, how is that not something
Mike
that
is saying he knew, though. He knew the situation.
Usually in different staffs, like I heard, we have to talk about the Miami Hurricanes postgame on QAM for a moment, because
I listened to the end of the game on radio.
Oh, did you?
That was my experience.
Poor Josie.
Josie, Don Bailey Jr. sounded like he had just witnessed something
like JFK's
horrible in front of him the entire time. And
he did. I
shit you not. I swear to God, this is how it went. They tossed to Alex Dono and Malik Rozier, who the handoff. First off, Josie is wondering aloud the entire postgame. I don't know the scenario, but I believe they maybe should have knelt. And then by the end, he's like, Don just talks to Cohen and Cristobal in the locker room. Don, we just saw the final play, and it looks like, yes, they definitely should have knelt.
I like Sam
Coming up next, we toss it to Alex Dono and Malik Rozier in the corporate-sponsored studio. And Dono and Rozier talk about it. They also sound like they've seen JFK's assassination.